In 2016, something inexplicable happened. In Havana, Cuba, US diplomats stationed there began experiencing strange, terrifying symptoms. A piercing noise, described as a metallic scraping, which triggered nausea, disorientation, and intense headaches. This bizarre occurrence was soon dubbed the Havana Syndrome. Welcome to Shrouded Mysteries, where we dive deep into some of the world's most unsettling and unsolved enigmas. Here, we explore the shadows of reality, mysteries that sometimes defy explanation. Some stories are more disturbing than others, but as they say, truth is often stranger than fiction. Stay with us as we uncover the events behind Havana Syndrome and much more. What started as an isolated incident quickly spread among embassy personnel, triggering a wave of fear and confusion. Families of diplomats were not spared either. Many reported experiencing the same symptoms, leading to a full-scale medical investigation. As more victims came forward, it became evident that this was more than just a random event. Something sinister was afoot. The first case was reported by an unnamed diplomat who woke up one morning to an excruciating noise that seemed to come from nowhere. Soon after, others, including their family members, experienced the same phenomenon. Among the first to report severe symptoms was Mark Lindsay, a security engineer at the US consulate, and his wife, who later described hearing grinding noises followed by debilitating pressure in their heads. Their children too began suffering from symptoms, raising alarms that this was not an isolated attack. Several victims were flown back to the United States for medical care, and some were eventually diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries, TBI, despite not having experienced any physical trauma. This led experts to suspect some kind of invisible, possibly sonic or microwave weapon. By early 2017, the US State Department ordered the evacuation of non-essential staff from the embassy in Havana. Soon after, Canadian diplomats reported similar symptoms, prompting a wave of evacuations from Canadian consulates. Both nations feared their diplomats were being targeted in a coordinated attack, but what began in Havana did not stay there. Similar cases soon surfaced among US personnel in China, Russia, and even Washington, D.C. itself. Paul Andrew, an intelligence officer, was one of the worst-hit victims. He described the onset of symptoms as if his brain had been fried, leaving him bedridden for weeks and unable to work. His family has been battling the lasting effects ever since, with some reports suggesting long-term cognitive impairment and chronic health issues. Dozens of victims were evaluated at medical facilities, including the University of Pennsylvania's Center for Brain Injury and Repair. Doctors found symptoms similar to those of concussions, but with no physical trauma to the brain. These findings baffled the medical community. In some of the worst cases, victims were unable to walk properly, had memory loss, and even experienced hearing loss. Dr. Douglas Smith, one of the leading neurologists in the investigation, mentioned that it was as if the victims had been in a severe car accident, yet there was no visible injury. One of the most extreme cases was that of a CIA operative stationed in Russia, who was so severely affected that he had to retire due to permanent neurological damage. Initially, the US government suspected that a foreign adversary, possibly Russia, had developed some sort of sonic or microwave weapon aimed at incapacitating diplomats. Some intelligence reports suggested a directed energy attack, a chilling possibility that heightened global tensions. However, as more data emerged, the lack of concrete evidence left scientists and politicians divided on the true cause. The case of Catherine Werner, a consulate officer, highlights just how severe the syndrome can be. She suffered extreme vertigo, cognitive dysfunction, and insomnia, making it impossible for her to continue her work. Werner's condition worsened over time, with her family also affected. Medical exams revealed abnormal brain patterns, and she was evacuated to the United States, where she remains under treatment to this day. Some reports indicate that Verna's symptoms are permanent, and her family is still dealing with the fallout, mentally and emotionally. As investigations continued, several theories emerged. Some believed the sounds were simply a byproduct of malfunctioning surveillance equipment used by foreign spies. Others posited that the victims had been exposed to mass psychogenic illness, a psychological phenomenon where stress and anxiety manifest physically. However, the consistency of the symptoms and the geographical spread cast doubt on this theory. In one instance, scientists suggested that the attacks were caused by pulsed microwave radiation. This theory gained traction after the National Academies of Sciences released a report in 2020 stating that directed pulsed radio frequency energy was the most likely culprit. But the lack of tangible evidence has left the mystery unsolved. Over time, the symptoms reported by the US diplomats in Havana worsened. Some experienced permanent hearing loss, cognitive issues, and debilitating headaches. Victims like Mark Lindsay, a security officer, and his family were among those affected. Many were evacuated, fearing that the symptoms could lead to long-term health consequences. To this day, several individuals still suffer from unexplained brain injuries, while medical teams and neurologists struggle to fully understand the cause. The worst case, some experts feared that Havana Syndrome was the result of an advanced weapon, possibly a sonic or microwave device. Yet, with no conclusive evidence, theories abound, ranging from mass hysteria to targeted attacks by foreign governments. But what if this was just the beginning? Historically, there have been whispers of secret experiments by global superpowers, each vying to develop new forms of weapons that push the boundaries of science and morality. Devices capable of weaponizing sound, electromagnetic waves, or even the human brain have long been speculated about, but never fully confirmed. Some believe that technologies like these already exist, held in the shadows by powerful nations. It's suspected that countries such as Russia and China have been researching such weapons for decades. The possibility that these experiments are happening in secret raises concerns about the future. If these tools of destruction were to fall into the wrong hands, the consequences could be catastrophic on a global scale. Imagine weapons capable of incapacitating entire populations without a single shot fired, bringing cities or even nations to their knees through invisible, undetectable means. In the wrong hands, this type of technology could redefine modern warfare and lead to mass chaos. How close are we to seeing this become a reality? And what governments might already possess these deadly tools? 8 years later, and the world is no closer to fully understanding what really happened. Over 200 US officials have come forward with symptoms of Havana Syndrome. Yet no one has been able to determine who or what is behind these attacks. Victims continue to suffer, with many reporting ongoing health problems, while the US government has had to provide medical compensation to affected individuals. The question remains, was this a deliberate attack orchestrated by an adversary, or was it a case of paranoia and misunderstanding? No one can say for sure. But what we do know is that similar technologies have been rumored to exist in the arsenals of many countries, particularly those with secretive, authoritarian governments like Russia, North Korea, and even Cuba itself. Diplomatic tensions remain high, and rumors continue to circulate about secret experiments and advanced energy weapons. In the end, Havana Syndrome stands as one of the most perplexing mysteries of modern times. It's a chilling reminder that we may never know the full extent of the dangers lurking in the shadows of international diplomacy. Could this have been a prototype of a new weapon, tested in the dark without leaving a trace? Or perhaps, more terrifyingly, is it part of a broader experiment that spans across nations, concealed behind government doors? One thing is certain. In a world where technology and warfare are becoming increasingly invisible, the line between science fiction and reality is getting blurrier by the day. Stay tuned to find out more about the mysteries that continue to baffle the world, here on our channel. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss an episode of Shrouded Mysteries.